The world tasted bitter. Life was torture. We're going to start with those words because they plunge you right into the heart of a young man's suffering. Before you even know his name, you can feel the agony of his existence.
So that feeling of agony, it belongs to the hero of Hermann Hesse's classic, Siddhartha. And in this explainer, we are diving deep into his profound spiritual crisis. We're going to follow his journey as he pushes self-denial to its absolute limit, only to smash headfirst into a great, world-shattering doubt.
So, what was it that drove him to this point of torture? Well, it was a single, all-consuming goal. He was convinced that the source of all his pain was his own self, his ego, and to find any kind of peace, he figured he first had to completely destroy it.
And just think about how total this ambition is. This isn't about, finding a little inner peace. No. This is about becoming completely empty. Empty of every desire, every dream, every single emotion, good or bad. The goal was to basically annihilate his ego so that in that perfect dead silence, the great secret of existence might finally whisper back.
Now to do this, he joins a group of ascetics called the Samanas. And their method was, well, it was simple, but it was brutal. If you want to conquer the self, you first got to conquer the body. And you do that through sheer, unadulterated pain.
And the things they did were just extreme. I mean, he fasted for almost a month until he was basically a skeleton. He forced himself to stand in the blistering sun and the freezing rain until he just felt nothing. He trained himself to see the ordinary world, love, business, family, as a complete lie, a beautiful mask hiding a stinking decay underneath. He was systematically killing off his senses. But you gotta understand, this wasn't just random suffering. It was a system. It was a teachable, repeatable process. First, he learned to withstand any hardship. Then, he mastered his own breath, slowing his heart down to a crawl. And the final, wildest step was to completely empty his mind and slip his consciousness into other things. A bird, a rock, even a dead animal. Anything to escape the prison of being Siddhartha.
And here's the kicker. The problem was, it worked, kind of. He mastered every single technique. He could leave his body for hours, even days at a time. But the escape was always temporary. Sooner or later, he'd find himself right back in his own skin, feeling the same old frustrations, trapped in the exact same cycle.
And this failure, this constant returning to himself, leads to a profound doubt. He starts to see his entire spiritual quest through this new, and let's be honest, pretty insulting analogy.
He finally turns to his best friend, Govinda, who's been right there with him through all of this, and he asks the one question you're not supposed to ask. After all this, are we actually getting anywhere? Is any of this really working? And then he just drops this bombshell. He says, look, what we're doing as holy men, it's no different than what a drunkard does at the bar. We flee the self with our meditations and our fasting. He flees the self with rice wine. Both, he says, are just a short-term numbing of the senses. That's it. Govinda, as you can imagine, is absolutely horrified. He pushes back, like, are you serious? You can't compare us to that. A drinker comes back from his stupor having learned nothing at all. But a samana is on a path to wisdom. He's climbing step by step.
But Siddhartha's reply is just devastating. He basically says, well, maybe you are, but I'm not. He admits that all he finds is a short numbing and that he is just as far away from real wisdom as a baby that hasn't even been born yet. After all that work, he feels like he has made zero progress.
So this isn't just some small disagreement anymore. This one single, brutal realization just triggers a complete and total collapse of his faith in the entire Samana way of life.
And his doubt really crystallizes when he looks at their teacher, the most respected Samana there is, a guy who's 60 years old. And he thinks to himself, this man has practiced his entire life, day in and day out, and even he hasn't reached nirvana. If a whole lifetime of this doesn't work, then the path itself has to be.
And so he comes to his final conclusion, telling Govinda, and really telling himself, by following these teachers, by practicing these tricks, we will never find what we're actually looking for. This path is a dead end.
And this leads him to an even more radical thought. It's a real mind-bender. He starts to think, wait a minute, what if the problem isn't the path? What if the problem is the seeking? He realizes that the very desire for knowledge, The act of learning from someone else might be the biggest enemy of wisdom there is.
But right at this moment, just as Siddhartha's entire world is crumbling around him, a new story, a new possibility arrives on the wind.
A rumor starts to spread like wildfire. There's this man, they say, named Gautama, the Buddha, and they say he's done the impossible. He has actually beaten suffering. He's stopped the endless cycle of rebirth. He's actually done what the Samanas and everyone else have only been talking about.
But the stories are all over the place. To his followers, he's basically a living god who can talk to other gods. To his enemies, though, he's a total fraud, a con man who lives in luxury and has abandoned the hard work of self-denial. So he's this figure of incredible hope, but also incredible controversy.
And it's Govinda, always the hopeful one, who finally says it out loud. He sees this Buddha as the answer to all their prayers. He asks Siddhartha, "Friend, shouldn't we go? Shouldn't we at least hear what this man has to say from his own mouth?"
And right then and there, Siddhartha makes a decision. He agrees to leave, not because he has faith in some new teacher, but because he has completely lost faith in the old one. This is his first real step away from a path he now knows for sure is false.
Their decision leads to one last dramatic confrontation. The head Samana, their old teacher, just flies into a rage when they say they're leaving. But Siddhartha, perfectly calm, uses a mind control technique he learned from the Samanas to mesmerize the old man and force him to give his blessing. It's the ultimate irony. He proves he's mastered the system at the exact moment he's throwing it away.
And as they walk away, he says it plain as day to Govinda. He has zero interest in spiritual party tricks, like walking on water. Those are just feats. He's looking for something real, and he is done with the illusions of self-denial.
And this leaves us right where Siddhartha is now. He's proven that torturing yourself is a dead end, and he's starting to suspect that just learning from others is also an obstacle. So, what's left? If both of those paths fail, what is the true way to wisdom? That's the question that's going to drive the entire rest of his incredible journey.